I'm myself black belt trained, but I haven't got myself certified in black belt. So I definitely would love to talk to people on the ASQ side and see how I could get myself certified. So I used to work for Shah, which is now called Takeda. That's where I got myself certified. So anyway, enough about myself. Again, I'm really pleased to be presenting here to all of you guys. And as I said, you can read about my background here offline. But as I said, in today's presentation, I'm going to take some examples from the life science industry, and then we are going to extrapolate that or relate that with your respective industries. So guys, moving on the agenda for today. And can everybody see my slide good enough, or should I make it in the presentation mode? Sometimes it freezes, so I just want to be careful. Are you guys okay with this, the size of the?
I can see it.
Okay, awesome.
Hi, Neeraj. It's Jeff from Shire.
Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Good to see you. Yeah, you helped me a lot back in those days.
Yep, I remember you. I was talking to Ken about you the other day. Yeah. So, so guys, today's agenda, we are going to talk about supply chain. Yeah. Hi.
Possibly put your presentation in presentation mode. You have it on the.
Yeah, I know. That is why I was asking, because okay, I'll put it. Is it good now?
That looks nice.
Awesome. So guys, today what I'm going to talk about is, it's not a lecture, okay? It's not, don't consider this as one-way presentation, one-way communication, right? I want to make it as interactive as possible. So I have some questions for you, but feel free to stop me and ask questions. And of course, we will still leave, at least 10 minutes towards the end to ask more questions, right? So it's nothing new that I'm presenting here. You all know about it. It's just like a, maybe a couple of ideas which I'm going to present here, maybe new for you, but it's a crystallization of what has been going on in the last couple of years and what it means in terms of setting a strategy, defining a strategy. How do you define a strategy? How do you convert that strategy into action? And then how do you execute? Because execution is very, very crucial, and hence this background. So I just want to make sure that you understand the context in which I'm presenting this, right? End of the day, we will touch upon project management and how effective project management helps in execution, but I just want you to understand the context. So we'll talk about the supply chain challenges, vulnerabilities that we've had in the last 2 years, during the pandemic. What was uncovered? What was, it was there, but we didn't really realize it, right? And then in the last 2 years, how supply chain has evolved. And I'll take some examples from my industry, right? And what are the current trends? And then, even though the pandemic is sort of over, but technically it is still there. It's not totally over, but the worst is over, is what we can say, right? So even though the worst is over, there are new challenges evolving that we will talk about. So the point, what I want to make it is, and I love the comment from Ken when he said, supply chain keeps you young. How? We will realize that when we go through some of the slides, right? And then how to formulate the supply chain strategy. It's going to be, I'll talk about a particular tool, which might, throw some insights for you. And then once you have that strategy, how do you take that strategy and convert that into action? And, you put an action plan, and then how do you execute? That's where project management comes in. So it's very crucial, but this is the agenda for today. Okay, jumping into, what were the vulnerabilities uncovered during the pandemic? So these existed, but the point is, some of these challenges, some of these vulnerabilities, not the challenges, like, the gaps that we had, it existed, but it was not prevalent. We did not realize till the pandemic hit, So what were some of them? This is not an exhaustive list, but these are some of the key aspects that, the industry leaders, like the PricewaterhouseCoopers, the key consulting companies, the Bain Consultings and Boston Consulting and all of these things, all of these guys, based on their research, this is what they have found. One that we found was that supply chain was primarily designed for cost efficiency. Okay, and which was nothing wrong at that time, right? Because supply chain consumes a huge amount of the product cost. So it was designed for efficiency. What does that mean? That we focused a lot on lean supply chain, just in time, low safety stocks, outsourcing, virtual supply chains, and all of that, which was perfect for that time. But what happened was we had never faced a pandemic of this scale in the recent past. I believe in 2009, we had that H1N1, but that was not of this scale at all. So it wasn't anybody's fault. Everybody was focusing on how do we optimize, how do we reduce the cost. But nobody really started seriously thinking about what agility and resiliency of supply chain. So there's very limited, what we realized during this pandemic was there's very limited business agility. And what is agility? As you all know, as the external environment changes, as the ecosystem changes, how fast can you adapt to the changing environment? That is agility, right? If something is changing, can my business adapt to that in 30 days or in 3 days, or it cannot adapt at all? And if you cannot adapt, you are going to fail. So that has been the key focus. And the other focus, you might have already heard about this, is resiliency. How resilient is my supply chain? When I'm facing those challenges, can I still sustain, or I do have to shut down my shop, right? So these are a couple of things that has been unearthed or uncovered during COVID. Limited visibility and transparency of the supply network. So what happened was, you have these extensive networks, right? Where you are manufacturing in China, you have a CMO in India, or it's a global supply chain, or Eastern Europe, or Latin America. It's a very, the network is very large, and companies generally go to countries, to regions, wherever they find the best, maybe again related to cost efficiency. You find the best cost, you find how do you optimize on the cost. As you can see, all large companies have manufacturing in Asia, right? So, but what happened was we were depending a lot on paper, on email communication. We did not have a way where I can go and see where my inventory is lying, at an instant in the supply network. Very limited visibility and transparency. We still were heavily dependent on manual processes, documents, emails, and all of that. Other big thing that we found out was data. Yes, we have been talking about data in the last few years, but very little investment has been made in the data that organizations own. And some even companies like who are, maybe in our world, we say like, you have a couple of products, right? Like, whether there's a commercial product or there's a products in the clinical phase. If you have one or two products, those companies don't even think about monetizing, leveraging the data that you have. And that is big. Minimal data harnessing capability. You didn't have the capability. People did not invest in building that capability. And then there was very limited data sharing across the supply network. And data is crucial, because if you think about it, all of these things are linked to each other. If you don't harness your data, you will not be able to make the decisions quickly. And that means you will lack in agility. Then strategy and execution. Lack of clear transformation roadmap. Now, since we did not face a lot of these challenges, there was little focus on digital transformation or even transformation of your supply chain and looking how supply chain can evolve with your operating model. Only few organizations had a project portfolios. Some have, the larger ones have, but again, then it comes to execution. You may have a portfolio, but how you are executing on your portfolio, and then converting strategy into execution, not a priority. Basically you can hire consultants, you can hire, big consultants, they can come in and they can give you the supply chain strategy, a nice deck, a nice slide deck. And then that strategy basically is gathering dust. And then you go back after 6 months and then you create another strategy. There's very limited connection between strategy and execution. And so that's one piece that we got to think about. Coming back here on the left-hand side now, lack of connected supply chain ecosystem. So we were not thinking of a connected supply chain, right? And if you look into the entire ecosystem, you map out your value stream, right? We have not been thinking in those terms. And even if we map the value stream, we don't create value in the value stream. So for example, business processes in the supply chain value stream are siloed. You have business processes. So if you think about end-to-end value stream from the point of, getting the raw materials, creating a product and servicing your customer, that value stream, basically, it has each step in the value stream has business processes, but they're not connected with each other. And we have not thought about that. Again, as I said, a lot of manual paper-based processes, minimal investment in digitization of supply chain. Now, this all leads to decision-making. Even till recently, we were doing, a lot of our decisions were based on past historical information, past experience. We depend on people's experience, which is great. Manpower people who have been working for several years, but you have seen what has happened in 2021, the Great Resignation and the flight of talent from the organization. So if you were depending on people and you did not have the infrastructure to leverage your data, you are in trouble. And we are seeing this across the industry. Very limited use of, leading indicators. Mostly we were using lagging indicators, and then risk management capability. Again, a lot of risks were happening, but there were very limited capability to manage risk. Lack of proactive risk management capabilities, almost no plan to deal with the unexpected, and unexpected is what happened. And there are a lot of examples that I have, and I'll welcome your inputs as well into this. So my question to all of you is, which of these supply chain vulnerabilities did your organization uncover during COVID? What is missing from this list? So I'll go back to this. So I'll give a couple of minutes. If there's anybody, raise your hand or say, go ahead and put something on chat. And Ken, if you can let me know, because I can't see the chat right now.
So the first one says raw materials to our raw materials.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain that, please? What's your question?
That's from C. Fardy. Go ahead, C. You can unmute yourself if you want.
Sorry, it's Claire with the laryngitis.
Oh, hi Claire. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. We found that some of the starting raw materials that we use for, well, our manufacturers and suppliers use, come from China. And when China had % shutdown, though, especially during transit and everything, our companies that are domestic had a hard time getting their own supply of raw materials. So we weren't really
prepared for that.
Necessarily aware that the raw materials to our raw materials that we use to produce our product was coming from, an area that was completely shut down.
Exactly. So doesn't it bring up a couple of things, right? So lack of visibility, like what we were talking about, limited visibility of the supply network. So you are not aware of that, right? And also lack of diversification, because everything was very much focused just on one area, right? It was just focused on a particular region. There was lack of diversification. So seems like you had a similar, at least one of the things that is listed here, you had a similar situation. Would you agree with that? Claire? Your first name is Claire, right? If I got it right.
Yes.
Claire with the laryngitis.
Claire with laryngitis agrees.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No worries. I won't. You don't have to speak up much. So, but I hope you can. See how the limited visibility and transparency kind of relates to the situation that you had, right? So drawing out our supply network, understanding the downstream or the upstream suppliers, as you said, the starting material that was needed from China, there was lack of clarity. And again, supplier risk management, that is another thing that we have to think about. How do you prepare a capability? How do you set up a capability to proactively be notified about supplier risk? So having visibility into your suppliers, their regions, what is going on in those particular regions that is going to impact your supply chain. Does that make sense, Claire? Maybe you can just say yes or no. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
And,
What else? Maybe we
Neeraj,
can
it
take one
says,
more question.
yeah, there's two in here. One is lack of proactive risk management besides raw materials, also logistics, and that's from Aruna. And then
Yes,
Larry
yes.
Spinello said can't find American suppliers as easy as in the past due to so much offloading to China. DoD must have it made here or with NATO countries. So those are the two comments: the lack of proactive risk management and the
Yes.
and the other one.
So going to the first one from Aruna. So lack of proactive risk management and logistics, especially the last mile shipping is crucial, and especially in my industry also Aruna, I believe you are from life science as well, is basically, the cold chain is crucial. It's, it has led to significant amount of waste. So risk management in logistics is significant. It's super crucial, super critical. I completely agree with you. And the third point from Larry, yes, diversification of sourcing is also very, very important. Can we move on?
Yeah, there's one more, but we can hit it at the end. This
Okay.
is basically piggybacking on Larry's comment. So
Okay, got you. So looks like some of you do agree with what we have here, which is great to know. So moving on, guys. So we'll talk about some of the trends. Hang on, let me move this here. Okay. So what are the trends now that we have faced all of these challenges? What is trending? And these are some of the things that we have observed. So there is a huge upswing in innovation and digitalization. So I know for sure companies are investing time, money, resources a lot in innovating, right? And innovation does not mean just transformational innovation. It could be incremental innovation. It could be larger innovation. But I know from my organization and all the large companies in the life sciences, and even smaller companies, they are heavily focused on innovating and how we can get things done better. Leveraging the technology landscape has changed significantly in the last few years, right? The capabilities that you have today at a fraction of a cost, which was not available even few years in the past. So that is phenomenal. And you can basically focus on that. So there's a huge upswing in that. Focus on harnessing and sharing data. So most organizations that I'm aware of, they're thinking about how they can, harness their internal data, as well as partnering with their, extended supply chain partners or partners in the extended supply chain, sharing data with them, bringing data into their system, and which is actually leading into analytics, building analytics and driving the decisions based on analytics. I can say that even sky is not the limit in this. The amount of technology that you have, the AI, ML capabilities that you have to provide you with predictive and even prescriptive capabilities. So harnessing data has become a big major focus. I'm sure you are hearing so many, webinars, conferences just around data. And as you know, data is the new gold, new oil. You can call it whatever you want, but absolutely, data is the lifeblood of any organization now, and people have realized that. Related to that, leveraging analytics. So if you have the right data, if the data quality is good, you can build capabilities, and we are seeing huge investment in analytics that will help you in those decision making, and not just decision making. It actually helps in the point number 5, which is risk monitoring capabilities. So if you can ingest data, and you can come up with capabilities to alert you on what's going on in the supply chain. For example, there are a lot of things going on, right? Political challenges, geopolitical issues, weather issues, health issues. So if you can harness that data to proactively monitor the risk that is going on, whether it is related to logistics or manufacturing, that will help you big time in managing your supply chain. As I said, focus on agility and resiliency. every organization. Now there is a shift in thinking, right? What people are saying is, okay, earlier we focused heavily just on the cost side of it, but even if it increases my cost a little bit, I have to come up with strategies. Should I increase my, inventory? Maybe a little bit. I'm not saying that's not the way to solve the problem. The way to solve the problem is to leverage technologies to improve visibility. But people are really thinking, diversification of suppliers, localization a little bit, and then also how we can be maybe a little bit less lean in the meantime, right? It's not because, again, we'll talk about strategy. What is my short-term strategy? What is my mid-term strategy? And what is my long-term strategy? So that, we are making our supply chain more agile, or bringing agility into the business, and improving our resiliency. So that is very crucial, that there is a shift in that thinking mindset. And then the last one, but the most important one, investment in talent development for the new normal and the future. You've seen in the last 1 year how talent has been shifting. I'm sure every company is struggling with the flight of talent. So how do you motivate people? How do you build the talent? How do you train people to work with these technologies? Because guys, I'll tell you, in the next 5 years, the way we work today, that is going to completely change. A lot of things that we do today as part of our operational work, that is going to be automated. So we need to reskill ourselves. If we want to survive in the future, then we definitely need to reskill ourselves to learn those capabilities, going forward. You can get n number of white papers. You can, just do a Google search, the future of work, and you will find out what is changing. So these are some of the trends, that has been observed. Anything that you guys would want to add on top of this? What is trending in your organization? Is there something in common? Is there something different that you want to share?
This is May. I think you have covered everything. Just a common point that I am seeing from the textiles and fashion industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think majorly from the textiles and fashion industry. So what's happening with the top bigger brands is that they are trying to evaluate regionalization of suppliers, right? Like to source more from a particular region, maybe going back in time, like how the trading blocks functioned a while ago, something to that effect, so that there's easier accessibility for the raw materials or finished fashion to reach the markets in anticipated time.
Yep.
So
Yep.
just to support what I think you've covered
Absolutely.
it in different ways, and one of the things that that's becoming a big issue, a big area of discussion within top brands seems to be the data points to exactly figure out whether it is profitable to move manufacturing back home, or still is it going to be good from offshore. Those kinds of data points to make business leaders make a decision.
Absolutely. Thank you, May. I agree with you, for sharing that information. Yes, a lot of those, people are still a little bit confused, and, does it make sense or not? However, guys, there are a couple of things, right? There is some of your operational strategy. See, what I'm talking about here is more about your strategic aspects of what you need to do, right? In terms of your transformation. There are operational aspects which will vary from organization, which will vary from industry to industry, which will vary from company to company, depending upon the size of the company, all of that. However, there are some strategic things that you have to think. For example, data, right? Whether I outsource it or whether I insource it, whether I make it locally, I still, even if I have a manufacturer in Texas or North Carolina or somewhere, right? I still, if it is not part of my internal enterprise, right? If I don't have access to that data easily. And I can tell you guys, even if data is there within your organization, there still there are situations where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. We are still in that siloed environment. So fundamental shift is necessary to move from where we are today. So whether you make in China or whether you make in Texas or whether you make in your own organization, you will still may not know. And there was this great example given by Claire that they were not aware that there are certain starting materials coming from China. So that was one aspect of it, right? But even I've seen, things that we are doing within our own organization, the next step in the value stream, they do not know what exactly is going on. So you have to put your systems thinking approach and so that to make sure the data flows in your value stream, so that the data that was generated in the first step of your value stream is available in the end step of your value stream to make those decisions.
Hey, Neeraj, speaking about data or
Mhm.
studies, is there anything out there, any group that's tracking how processes are being brought back? One of the biggest problems I see, and I want to mention where I work, when they offload a certain process,
Mhm.
they give all the equipment, and if people who happen to be working with the plant, if it's nearby, everybody moves to that subcontractor. Now, if it's
Mhm.
out of the country, that talent is lost. So if you wanted to bring that process back, you have a certain window of opportunity, and I just want to know if there's any data out there talked about when you offload a process, how much time will take place where if you want to bring it back, if it goes past like a 3-year window, chances are you can't ever bring it back because now everything's moved, everything's moving along, and can you get this process back? And how much money will involve to bring it back? And then we put up your business plan and you try to see, well, we need to bring this process back, and nobody can do it. So I just want to know if there's any data out there that shows what to expect if you want to offload and bring it back. Is that a possibility?
That's a great question. Larry. So I don't have a standard number that I can share with you because that's going to vary depending upon the size of the process, how big that process is, how much risk is associated with that. Because but one thing I can tell you, when you are outsourcing a process, right? When you are taking a process out to a subcontractor, what is really crucial is we don't really think through properly. And we say, okay, we have gotten, rid of this. The risk is theirs. We don't care. They'll take care of everything. But you need to ensure that when you're negotiating that contract, with your partner. So something is, say, in the cloud, right? So you outsource that, they do it, it's in their cloud. That is the time where you have to negotiate. You make sure the statement of work that you're putting there, you tell them that, guys, this is our process, this is our data. And at that point itself, you have to tell them that we need this data back. We own this data. This is our data. Yes, you are doing the process, but the data that you're generating is part of our ecosystem or is part of our value stream. And we need, and I have personally seen that because a lot of time we have the CMOs, right? And the CMOs are very reluctant, or in the clinical supply chain where I am actually, we have these IRT systems where they're very reluctant to share data and they ask money, you have to pay for my resources just to give the data. So when you do that, when you do your vendor evaluation, that should be in your contract that this is my data and I will only select you if you're willing to share my data with me and you keep my data secure. And also the mitigation strategy, like if I were to change vendors, how am I going to get my data back? How are you archiving my data? And how will I get my data back in 24 hours? No more than that. All right, guys, so we'll move on to the next slide. And Ken, please keep a tab of the time because I'm talking a lot. I don't want to delay the presentation. So thank you for sharing that, Larry. So let's jump into this, right? So before formulating strategy. But before we get into formulating strategy, so, okay, we have gone through the pandemic almost, right? It's not over yet, but, and we have uncovered a lot of things, right? But are the challenges over yet? What happened? Who would have guessed, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia in early or late February? How is that dynamic playing? It is impacting the life science industry a lot, I know. Clinical trials that were being run in Ukraine and Russia, we are in big trouble. Similarly, I've heard the automotive industry. I actually found a white paper. I don't know if I have the link. I'm happy to share with you guys from The Economist. I don't have it here right now, but I can send the PDF if you guys are interested. How this whole trade sanctions on Russia is going to change the future, because we are using the financial instruments as a way to punish Russia. There are trade sanctions, and I don't want to get into the politics of that, but that is going to change the future, how transactions will happen, and that will also impact supply chain. Okay, rising energy prices, we are all aware of that, significantly impacting the shipping and the transportation cost. Unprecedented inflation in US and around the globe. There are, at least more than 50 countries around the globe, whether it is in Latin America, Asia, where inflation is more than double digit. Here we are at least around 8%, but there are countries where it is more than double digit. US-China trade wars will impact outsourcing and offshoring, right? So that cost effectivity, so you still have to be cost effective, right? Whether you outsource to China, the customer does not care. So how can we be cost effective even we are insourcing or localizing? So that is what we have to think. Shift in paradigm, paradigm shift. Instability and uncertainty arising out of political realignments, because there is a lot of political realignments happening. Steep rise in freight cost, which is again related to rise in energy prices and a lot of other factors as well, right? Because there is an issue of, people as well. Sorry, this is a repetition. Apologies about that. But I think at least you get the picture here, guys, right? That, it's just because the pandemic is almost over, the challenge is not yet over. And I can remember Ken's comment earlier in the, before in the networking session, like, supply chain keeps us young. So we always have to, evolve. We always have to keep thinking, and we have to adapt to the changing situation. So that is the name of the game, guys, today. We have to continuously adapt to the changing environment, because this has become the new normal.
Neeraj, one comment from, let's see, Claire says strained energy resources for our raw materials production. And Scott said steep rise in freight costs bears repeating. So a couple of comments there.
Yeah, I noticed that. Sorry for the oversight there.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, probably there was something which didn't get translated here. What I'll do is I'll update the deck before we share it. So as you can see, guys, that is, name of the game is evolution, adaptation, and how do we adapt to that? So given the situation where we are in, right, we have to, what is going to happen is, it's not like we'll set up a strategy. In the past, I know what we have done is we had a strategy, we put a roadmap, and that roadmap was good for at least 2 years or even 3 years, right? We would just continue to execute on that roadmap. But in today's environment, you create a strategy because your inputs are changing, your environment is changing, and the expected outputs are changing, right? So when I say inputs means what is happening is the technologies that you have, that is changing. The people that you have is changing who can help you. The ecosystem is changing, and what is expected of us is also changing, right? What was expected of us 6 months back may change today, and it may change again 6 months from now. So in that situation, in fact, I would like to ask you guys, how you guys are formulating your strategy. Here today, I'm going to talk about a particular tool, which is fairly, I think it's a very good tool and it's important for supply chain folks to understand, because it's not that supply chain of the past, right, where we just make sure, we make it happen, because technology has become embedded in supply chain. We call it Amazonification, or so basically how Amazon has transferred this whole shipping and the whole supply chain side of it. Like, we can go to Prime and we can order something and it is there next day, right? So that has transformed supply chain, which basically means technology is not something, a different pillar for us to think about. As supply chain professionals, we have to basically embrace technology, and they go hand in hand. And if you're going through your CPIM and all of those certifications, I'm sure those books and those sessions, those classes, or they talk about how technology is influencing. So here I'm going to talk about a particular tool called Gartner's Hype Cycle, which is not just about technology, but it talks also about operating models and capabilities, frameworks that can be used to develop your supply chain strategy and continuously evolve your supply chain strategy. It helps in evaluating your current maturity level. What is your current maturity level? What are the business benefits if you deploy those capabilities, and the business impact and the potential obstacles for each capability. And it also helps companies in providing guidance for successful adoption, because it's not just about picking a technology, but it's also about how do you make sure that it is well adopted by people in your organization and people beyond your organization if it impacts them. So Ken, maybe, no, I think we are good here. After this slide, you may want to stop the recording, just as a reminder.
After 13, yep, I'm in.
Yeah, for a couple of slides. So hype cycle phases, right? So what is a hype cycle and what are the stages before I go into showing you the hype cycle? So any technology, right? You might have heard like control towers, right? Or digital twins, or new models like circular economy, right? Or modular supply chains, right? So these frameworks, these models, or different technologies, AI, ML, RPA, robotic process automation. A lot of these capabilities you might have heard in the last several months, years, couple of years, right? So what happens is when any of these technology just comes in, right? First of all, there is a need for that, and then that triggers that innovation, and a breakthrough product is launched, and it is, it's demonstrated, it's published, there's press releases and all of that. It creates a lot of hype, and hence the name hype cycle. So it's called Gartner's hype cycle. So Gartner kind of defines when a technology is introduced, or a new concept or a new framework is introduced, there's a lot of hype generated around it, and people think, oh, this is going to solve all our problems, right? Everything, you do like Internet of Things, I'm sure you've heard about it, and this is it. This is going to solve all our problems. So, and what happens then is there is a peak of inflated expectations. As I just said, phase of over enthusiasm, unrealistic expectations. There's a flurry of well-publicized activity, by technology leaders. Every conference you go to, you hear about that, and you start thinking, oh, now that's it. We can solve all of it. And then when the rubber hits the road, then you talk to them and you say, okay, let's do it. And you're part of it. There is a trough, right? There's a fall of disillusionment, because, your interest declines, because when you start dabbling with it, you do a proof of concept, or you start implementing it, maybe some of them, you feel that innovation does not live up to your expectations, right? They promised a lot, but they're not delivering what they promised, right? And then you lose interest, and then you're back to square one. You think, okay, life is back to where we started. This is not going to solve our problem till something new happens. And then there is a slope of enlightenment. What happens is some organizations, certain groups who continue to work with it, right? Because of certain, obstacles that you face in the beginning, you don't really stop. You continue to work with it. The technology evolves. You work with it. You change your processes to fit into that. That work with the technical people to make sure it happens. Then, which is basically solid hard work, leads to true understanding of the innovation's applicability. And then what happens is there is adoption, and then you find the benefits out of it. And then you see the plateau of productivity. So any new thing, new concept, new framework, new technology, it goes through these cycles, before it starts yielding results. And you have to be patient. You have to evaluate it properly, but you have to work through it. That hard work, that sweat and blood that you have to put in, that is necessary. So this is a hype cycle for any new concept, new framework. Let's see how that works here in this. Yes.
Okay, restarted.
So you have a strategy in place, right? Now you have to think about how do you convert strategy into action? How do you make it happen? Having a nice strategy, a nice set of PowerPoint slide does not help, right? You have to take that, and there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done to take that strategy and put it into action. So I'll just go through a very high level, it's not like all encompassing, but it gives you, hang on, maybe I need to bring this down. So basically it gives you a flavor of how you want to proceed, right? So you define the strategy, you have your strategic priorities there. What you should also do is you should do an evaluation of your digital supply chain maturity. What it means is where you are in the curve, right? Are you at the beginning? Are you a little bit mature? What capabilities you have? What is your, relationship with your IT? Do you have people within your own function who can do things? So you have to do a little assessment of where we are, because you don't want to go from 0 to like 100 miles an hour, right? You have to be able to crawl and, then walk and then run, right? So you have to do an assessment of your what your business needs are that you have already defined, but what your maturity is today. And then develop a roadmap to accomplish your strategy, because that roadmap will be dependent upon what capabilities you have today or what capabilities you need to add, right? Because that is also very crucial. And one thing I'll caution you guys here is, yes, be ambitious. Sometimes, organizations say, oh, we'll do this, we'll do that, by end of this year, but be realistic. Don't be unrealistic. So drawouts, don't do too many things. Do a few things well, rather than putting too many things on the roadmap and then not accomplishing anything. And make sure you measure anything that you are planning should be measurable. I'm sure ASQ guys will agree with me on this. Anything you're trying to do, it has to be measurable. And then once you have this, establish a roadmap and a project portfolio. So basically, you have a roadmap, develop a roadmap, refine it, share it with your stakeholders, make sure you socialize that roadmap. And then from that roadmap, basically, it could be a high level roadmap, right? Okay, we will have analytics capability, we will have a control tower, or we will make sure, we have a data lake, or we have ways to capture the data. You put your roadmap, and then from that roadmap, there will be multiple projects that will be spawned from that roadmap. And that is what I mean by project portfolio. Okay, create a portfolio, and also that portfolio has to be mapped around the timeline. What is accomplishable, or what can be accomplished in the next 3-6 months, and always break it down to every quarter, what you can accomplish in a quarter. Don't make an annual plan and then in December you realize, oh, by the way, we are only 20%. Measure your performance every 3 months, every 90 days, every month. You can break it down as much as you want, but a quarter is a good measure to see how well you have progressed, right? And that is what is very, very crucial. As I said, socialize your initiative with the stakeholders, establish your business case. You should definitely have a practice in your organization to have a business case, which is basically telling what are the benefits, quantitative, qualitative benefits of your business case. What is your return on investment? That is very crucial. I'm sure your leaders are going to ask, if you want $500,000, what is the return on investment? What is the business benefit? So try to make sure you get into the practice. This should be your day-to-day process. It should not be like one-time thing. identify what your risks are, and then getting now plan execution. So these 3 steps, guys, are more on the execution side of it. And this is where we get into the nitty-gritties of defining the project, defining project charter, resources, timelines, milestone. I just want to add here, adopt an agile approach to implementing solutions. So yes, there are agile practices, but some of the core industries, the manufacturing industries, unlike the software industry, has not yet matured to that level how the software and some of these big tech companies have matured, right? So it's going to be a slow adoption, but thinking about agile is very important, the iterative approach, the agile approach on how you can do things incrementally. So start bringing that in. You cannot force an agile approach into the conventional industry, but definitely you need to start educating people and start thinking about that agile approach. Don't aim for perfection in the first iteration. Okay, we are going to be perfect, everything is going to be perfect. Do not do that. Try to follow the Pareto's law, 80-20. If you are able to get 80% of your needs, requirements, or key capabilities in, be happy with that. Go to the next iteration, work on the next iteration to improvise on that. Because unless you have rolled out something, unless you have implemented something, you can keep talking in the meetings that this is how we should do it, that is how we should do it. You will not really know exactly what is going on. So make sure, roll it out, right? And then see what the feedback is. And manage change, guys. Change management, we can talk an entire day on change management. How do you manage change? How do you manage expectations? How it impacts people? People are always going to ask, I'm going to spend all these extra hours. What is in it for me? So manage that, handle that very carefully. Empathize with people. That is very, very important. Execute. So during execution, monitoring, constant monitoring is very, very important. Reporting. Okay, again, don't overwhelm people with a lot of, administrative tasks. Try to keep that lean, but still have mechanisms. Because see, there are 2 extremes in the industry, I can tell you. Big guys, where we have a lot of money, a lot of resources to throw in, and we say, oh, let's have a status meeting every week or every 2 weeks. And that takes a lot of time. And then what happens is innovation gets killed. And then there is that other extreme, very small companies, they don't care about reporting. They don't care about documentation, or just let's do it. So please avoid the 2 extremes. Try to be somewhere in between, depending upon how much resource you have available, right? Because innovation is equally important, guys. Gone are those days where you can just survive because of your size. Even a small company can come and destroy you completely.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. And measure your business outcomes against the success criteria. So once as you are rolling out things, make sure you're measuring your business outcomes, how it has helped. So obviously have key performance indicators, manage change adoption. A little bit of a repetition here, but again, change management is a big piece of it. So managing change means it's like how do you handle the stakeholder strategy, all of that, right? And then close and measure, evaluate lessons learned, what you should continue to do in the future, what you need to stop, what you need to start, and plan the next building block. So more or less, as you can see, strategy, road mapping, portfolio development, and then execution. So now you know where we are heading to, right? Any guesses? What is needed next? So once you have at least this high-level plan, you come up to this second step. What is crucial now?
Prioritization?
Yeah, prioritization you did here, right? So when we are talking about execution, what is crucial?
Define the deliverables in a flexible manner.
Right. Yeah, absolutely right, May. I mean, but overall, that is where the role of project management comes in, right? So identifying deliverables, identifying scope, identifying resources, how you're going to handle it, how you're going to measure it. Having good project managers in the organization is so crucial. So I was hoping that you would take the cue from today's discussion, project management. So these 3 phases heavily focused on project management. So question for you, where you guys are in this journey, if anybody wants to share, and then if not, then we will move into, the project management boot camp that we are planning, and, what you would learn from that. And, some of the best practices that you will learn if you plan to attend that. And I'll just tell you, so this program that we are reinitiating actually after 6 years, and I'll tell you a little story. So we used to run this very successfully at least 3 times a year until 2015. That is when, as I said earlier, I left for New Jersey, and somehow I got so busy that with New Jersey chapter, I could never initiate it, right? So when I came back last year, Ken kind of pounced on me and said, Neeraj, you need to start. Both Mark and Ken, that they said, hey, Mark Chokalingam, who's our past president, and they both said, hey, you need to restart this. And I said, I'm sure I'll be more than happy to, because I really enjoyed this. Because when we used to have these sessions, and I do it a very applied manner, right? It's not about theory. It's about the experience that I bring from the last 25 years. And we take up small examples. And what I used to love is when people would come back in the next session and say, Neeraj, what we learned in the last session, I went and applied it, and this is the result I got. And that gave me a lot of kick out of it, that, hey, something that we discussed in the class, somebody went and tried to apply it, and they got some positive outcome. So these are some bullet points. I mean, whether we go through this, so this is basically going through the whole cycle of project execution, different steps. What you will learn, you can read it yourself. I'm not going to, I would rather go for more question answers here. And then basically, specific things, practices, tools, scenarios, situations that you will learn during the boot camp. So we are hoping to start the boot camp in the fall. It's just, I would love to start it sooner, but because of all of the commitments, we want to go slow, and, we want to make sure that, we hit the, the right timing and everything. And I have mind space as well. So with that, I don't know how much time we have. Where are we, Ken? I haven't checked the time.
You still have a couple minutes, and then we can do Q&A, or we can start Q&A now.
Yeah, we can start. I would rather focus on Q&A. There's nothing, I really don't want to read these bullet points here. People can read it. Everybody will get the slides. So I would rather focus on any questions.
Excellent.
On
yeah, there was one comment from David that says an independent PMO and processes are critical.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I will
critical. Yeah, this
one thing just for the team, I'm going to put in the links for the survey and the certificate. So, ignore me now. Go ahead, Neeraj.
Yeah, it's critical. I agree. But it is also important, first of all, a PMO, setting up a PMO's defining PMO's role, what exactly the PMO is going to do is also crucial. Yes. So it again depends upon the organization, the culture of the organization, the funding that you have. Don't spin up a PMO just because you heard it is a cool thing to do, right? If you can set up an effective PMO who can facilitate, who can train people, who can bring in the culture of project management organization, absolutely. It's a very valuable tool. I'm not against it, but just make sure that, everybody really understands, because I'll tell you one thing from my experience, right? A lot of times people have seen that as a blocker or a roadblock, a lot of times. And there are reasons for that, right? So I'm a big fan of PMO, because then you have a focused set of people who are focusing on the best practices, who are educating people, who are providing project managers, trained project managers. That is their job, right? That they understand. And you also build functional skills around that, not just a generalized PMO and a project administrator, but somebody who really understands the business. Big fan of it, but just be careful how you want to implement it.
Yeah, can I comment on that just for a moment?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, my thing is kind of what I see in an organization, especially if it's a decent size organization, is you have, regardless of how flat the organization is, there are always silos, functional silos. And what I see happening, and I have seen it in other companies as well, that you have competing efforts going on. Sometimes a project will do the best for the company. You lay in the control plan, you assign it and hand it over to who's in control. You walk away, you come back 3 years later, and somebody's done another project right through what you did and undid a couple of key critical elements of control, and you've lost the recipe. Because
Yes,
the
yes,
business has to have an owner for those processes and their interactions
yes,
and
yes,
review changes. There's got to be that you mentioned change management is
yes.
critical.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I'll tell you one thing. I actually led a Kaizen process back when I was at Shire for the tech ops group actually, and we did something called project intake process. So I was part of PMO. That's how I can remember this. And it was called project intake process, and that was all strategic projects. We had a proliferation of projects. You know, we were like going crazy. We could not figure out how to run those projects. Like resources were so, thinly laid out that we could not figure that out. And that is where the PMO and the operations excellence group, we got together and we laid that out. And after that, like once the process was laid out, I left the organization, but I used to get feedback from some people that worked very well. It helped in harmonizing, as you rightly said, similar projects with different names, different groups trying to accomplish the same objective, but it helped in harmonizing that and bringing that together. So
Yes,
great.
agreed. Thank you.
One question. For the boot camp, are you planning to introduce the concepts of agile project management, like concepts from SAFe? I'm finding a lot of waterfall here. Are you planning to blend some things here and there?
So see, for this one, the idea is basically, because this is not just a boot camp to educate people, but this will also help in the certification, the PMP certification. So you basically, you address two areas, right? Not only you learn about project management, if you are interested to go and take the test and get certified, you do that. However, there will be some discussions, not the SAFe aspect of it, because I'll be very honest with you, right? I've just gone through the SAFe training, 4-day training for SPC. And what I've seen is SAFe is, those concepts are completely transformational, right? And it works very great for software companies, tech companies, a lot of tech companies, Apple and Netflix and all of those guys, they have adopted it because they live and breathe software. But companies like life sciences, they don't live and breathe software, right? Yes, I still believe that those approaches can be applied. So at this point, that is a huge change in mindset. And I fear that, bringing those concepts, people will just go like, okay, this does not make sense to me. Certain aspects of Agile can definitely be brought into it, and we can have a separate introductory concepts in the future where we can talk about Agile and how it helps. It's a great practice, and I'm myself a big proponent of that. Certain thinkings, but you cannot apply directly the way it is, the way SAFe says, into some of the traditional industries. That is my analysis of it.
I beg to differ, but because we've been even coaching, training the military and also corporate healthcare companies like Aetna and others, where it's being adapted in a full swing. But when there are concepts, if you guys think there are opportunities to introduce Agile, and if I can contribute anywhere, please let me know, because I'm fully trained, certified for training others in that space. So
Sure, absolutely.
But I definitely agree with Neeraj on that, because I am from life sciences, and I will tell you, so many number of times we bring people into the companies to teach any project management base, and it doesn't really go, we don't get a lot of traction on it because people don't think it is as important as something else, right? For especially life sciences, if you have a classes on CGMP or GMP practices and science, those are more of a value than project management, really. And so, yeah, I think it needs to be catered to certain specific industries. Life sciences isn't one, but the consumer goods another. It might be a great value. Having worked in both like consumer goods, automotive, and now I am in life sciences, I will tell you automotive and consumer goods would really love that software or the presentation, unlike life sciences.
Yeah, exactly. And things are evolving. So consumer goods is much ahead of life sciences in terms of adoption of technologies and all of that.
Absolutely.
So, so like, as you said, Aetna, it's an insurance company, right? So they live and breathe, a lot of these technical capabilities, which everybody's getting to that, right? But how we deliver that, it's again that, crawl, walk, and run. So I would say a lot of these core industries, see, training is one thing. And what I believe is, it's not just about the training. You go get certified, so what? Yeah, I get a certificate. What am I going to do with that certificate? Hang it on the wall? That's not what we want to do here at Apex as well, right? What we want to make sure is when you come for something, you learn something, you apply it. Even if you don't get a certificate, if you can apply those learnings in your day-to-day world, and if that helps you in your job and you get a promotion, because now you started thinking in a different way, that is what is important. Certification, yes, it helps. It might get you a little bit of a higher pay in your next job, but I feel like it's the application of what we learn in your job. Just sitting in a class for 4 days gets me something, but if I'm not able to improve how I work, if I don't do things differently, then what's the point of spending the time?
Excellent. That was great.
Any other questions, guys?
Aruna just said, if you click on the 3 dots next at the top of the chat, you will see the option to save the chat. So if you want to save those links, you can, or you can just click on the links now and just save the browser, keep it open. After the Zoom thing is closed, you'll be able to get to survey and the certificate that shows you attended. In case you're getting certified or recertified, this is good for an hour. So there you go. Excitement. Any other questions? We can keep networking for anyone who wants to stay on for as long as they want to stay on. Are there any other questions for Neeraj while we're on? I mean, this is real stuff you can take back to your work and use and help you. And it's exactly what Neeraj is saying. I would comment, one person had said something about, they had a project going and then somebody else went in and did something else, which overwrote what they did last time. This is clearly where you need management, upper level management, executive support to make sure that your project that is going on is, so everybody else who knows they're working on the project, this is supported by upper management, and they won't be trying to knock it down from some other portion of the company somewhere else. So upper level executive management is critical for all these projects, especially the big ones. Love it. All right. Well, thank you, Neeraj. Appreciate it. Great job. I will stop recording, but I will keep networking going. Thank you to everyone who came.
And, I think, Ken, some folks wanted my, my contacts, like my email or an email, you can share that.
Yeah. Do you have it on?
No, I don't have it on the slide. Maybe what we can do is I can update the slide. There was one duplication. I'll remove that, by tomorrow. And I'll also put my phone and email if anybody has more questions.
And for what I'll do, Neeraj, is do you want me to put your email address right in the chat window right now? I'm just looking for it now.
That's fine too. That's fine too.
I should have a ton of emails here from you, but only when I'm looking for it can I not find it. I'll use the Gmail one.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, use the Gmail one, please.
All right, that'll go in chat right now, people.
Neeraj, thank you. That was a very good presentation.
Thank you so much.
From life sciences, and yeah, we're running through that where we're losing talent. During COVID, people were working from home, and then when we called them back, they found other jobs where they can work from home, and so we're going through that striation now and hiring new people, and it's tough. It's a tough, different world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a different world, and it is evolving continuously. So, preparing for that change, as I said, because I was just thinking, like, what is the story? What is it that has challenged us in the last couple of years and continue to challenge us right now? And from both perspective, from an employer perspective, as an employee perspective, right? Because there are challenges on both sides, right? So how we can bring the harmony between the two so that employee is happy, employer is happy, productivity is high.
Hey, Neeraj, this is Neeraj. I just wanted to thank you also for the presentation. It's been very enlightening, and I know personally, it's especially with our auditors consulting in ISO. I mean, I think it's really important to understand some of the challenges that really our clients and prospective clients are facing. I could, as a brief comment, I could tell you here in New Jersey, I'm a resource for the MEP, the Manufacturer Extension Program here, and there was a recent event where I could tell you that in Jersey, I'm sure like some other states, I'm not sure about Massachusetts, but we struggle with keeping manufacturing here. If we don't lose them to, Texas or North Carolina or one of the, they'll good chance they even go out of the country. And then, what they're telling is, okay, so this guy goes, and now that's affecting everyone else who's in the state and needs to get things. And I hear a lot of the common challenges, raw materials, talent. They're having difficulty finding people who want to work in manufacturing.
Yep.
So definitely, I feel like these are great things. I know people have been implementing practices like lean, trying to do what they can with what they have, as short of actually bringing manufacturing back. So, but this is great. This has been really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for your feedback. I love it. Yeah.
One comment about, I've lived through the outsourcing since the 80s. The one thing that I wish there, a higher level business, architecture would look at the total life cycle cost. For instance, we have stuff being made in China, and we are paying for those raw materials from the time they have to be consumed to start the process to the time that product lands in our warehouse to ship to our end client. We have 9 months worth of inventory in various states and levels.
Yep.
So,
yep.
but that is not in the piece price cost. That's an
Yes.
off book
Yes.
booking that
Yes.
they've done. And if they ever had to account for the actual cost,
Oh, yeah.
we would be bringing manufacturing back to North America. Period.
Exactly. See,
that's an
very
excellent
good
point.
That's a great point. That's a great point. The life cycle cost. That's a fantastic point, actually. And
yeah, I was going to add to the same thing, right? So it's usually when a risk mitigation process is done, they do not add this life cycle cost into it, unfortunately. And that I always find should be a major part. The cost just goes, what's the risk of anything failing at any point? That should also be included in your cost.
Exactly, precisely. Yeah. And what happens, if there are all these exception scenarios, right? Excuse me. What happens if there are exception scenarios, like, the situations that we are going through? How do we mitigate that? And what is the cost of that? And what is the impact? Like in our industry, we always think from the patient's perspective, right? Aruna, as you know, like, what is the impact to the patient? And that could be huge, right? It's not just about the money. Of course, that is important, revenue and the cost and all of that, but end of the day, impact to our customer. So very well said. Yep.
Yeah.
Great points, guys. Great points. I'm really enjoying the conversation.
Neeraj, I really want to echo what others said. A wonderful presentation, great discussion, timely topic. It's a very timely topic. Appreciate everything. I can't stay anymore. I do have to go, but yeah, and I really enjoyed the presentation. Thanks, Neeraj.
Thank you, Aruna. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Ken, for organizing this.
That was fun. It was fun, and it was great with the team. The team helped me. This joint meeting. So it's great stuff.
Guys,
By the way,
like you all, I'm very passionate about supply chain. So if please look me up on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to connect.
Love it. Thank you, Aruna. That's
Thank
great.
you.
And
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Aruna. Bye-bye.
And Neeraj, there's one comment from Claire that says, same here, hard to find talent. Retention is challenging. It's so true in this market. Companies have to focus on flexibility. And, there are companies that want to bring all their people. I just heard today, Apple, they lost their, the chief AI artificial intelligence person left Apple to go to Google because of work from home being discontinued at Apple. I mean, that's nuts. I mean, Apple should be more flexible, and technology is their game. So why they're making everybody go back doesn't seem to make any sense. And they're losing really talented people because of it. So,
and I just want to add one more thing, Ken.
Yep.
So yes, flexibility is important, money is important, but one thing is super important, I feel, this from my personal experience, is that the human side of it, right? Basically, how do I engage my employees? How do the employees feel that they are contributing for the greater good of the company? I think if you can make that happen, if your employee feels that I'm a very important member of this group, right? And I'm making an impact in the organization, I think that, at least I feel, that has 50% impact, especially in the virtual world that we are working, where we are not meeting each other. I think that concept of reassuring and making sure you are not just hearing people, because I hear this comment a lot of times, I heard you, we have heard you, but you have not listened to me. You might have heard me, but you did not listen to me, right? So make sure when you are getting that feedback, that's the personal level conversation that you need to have to make sure the employee feels engaged and part of the family. I think that is the biggest thing that the companies are not really thinking. They give all these freebies, maybe they give you, you may get 10% higher jump in your salary, you move to your next role, but you will be in the same mess. You may be in the same mess 1 year from now, even if you moved in the new company, because the new company is not again listening to you. Yes, you got a little bit more dollars, but that's first paycheck you see, second paycheck you see, and then it does not matter.
Yeah.
So true. I love how you make a lot of this into real world examples, simplifying things so that we can understand it. And, it's great stuff that we can actually take back to our companies. A lot of times we'll hear these theoretical scientific presentations, blah, blah, blah. Well, this is great. You really take it to the next level. And, I can't wait for your course. It's going to be
Thank you. It's very humbling, Ken. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
In fact,
Neeraj. Hey, Neeraj, it was good to see you. Good presentation.